Microsoft has announced the Phi-3, PHI-3 family of open models. And these are noteworthy because they're actually small language models or SLMs. According to Microsoft, SLMs, quote, offer many of the same capabilities found in large language models, but are smaller in size and are trained on smaller amounts of data. Now, because these models are much smaller than LLMs, they consume far less compute and they can run locally or have the potential to on devices like an iPhone. So, one of the main models in the family, Phi-3 Mini, has 3.8 billion parameters. It was trained on 3.3 trillion tokens, and Microsoft says it performs better than models twice its size. There are some other Phi-3 models coming soon with more parameters. 7 billion and 14 billion have been mentioned by Microsoft. And while large language models are basically unmatched right now for complex tasks and the most advanced use cases, the reason this is kind of a big deal is that these small language models can perform really well on a lot of simpler things that can make AI more accessible and easier to use for organizations with limited resources. Small language models can also be more easily fine-tuned. Sonali Yadav, who's Microsoft's principal product manager for generative AI, said the following about this trend. Quote, what we're going to start to see is not a shift from large to small, but a shift from a singular category of models to a portfolio of models where customers get the ability to make a decision on what is the best model for their scenario. So, Paul, I found this trend really interesting in terms of what it could mean for AI adoption. Like, how do you see small language models potentially increasing or streamlining how organizations actually adopt AI?
For just some macro level context here, again, the reason why these models are important is because it costs a lot of money to run the big models. So, we're building GPT-4, GPT-5, or Gemini 1.5, or, Claude 3 Opus, like the biggest frontier models to use those models. So training them costs hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. That's one thing. But then the inference costs. So when you and I go to use the tool, for whatever it is, to write our emails or to generate our images or eventually to generate our, 10-second videos, that's the inference cost. So if you're using these massive models every time you need to do a discrete task, it can get insanely expensive. So for Microsoft, who's licensing OpenAI's technology to do, say, 365 Copilot, it's built on OpenAI's GPT-4 or 4.5, whatever it is, technology, it costs them a bunch of money to pay OpenAI to use it every time you or I go in and use Copilot. So there's a lot of motivation to build these smaller models that don't cost as much money. And what the research seems to be showing recently is, as you alluded to, you can train these things a little easier. There's been a number of research reports just in the last few weeks that shows that the quality of data matters a lot. And that if you can take a smaller model that costs less to train and costs less to run, and you can give it more kind of hand-picked data sources, that these things can perform like a much larger model in terms of their quality and reliability if the data is really good that goes into them. Apple actually has released a number of research papers showing this is the direction they're going, where you build these smaller models that don't cost as much to run, don't cost as much to train, and they can run on device, so you don't have to go to the cloud every time you want to do something. So again, every time you or I go into ChatGPT or Perplexity or wherever, we're going and pulling from compute in the cloud somewhere, which costs money. What they're saying is, in the future, you could be on your device on do not disturb or airplane mode, and you could be running a
Mm.
model doing something on your phone. That's what this means. And so that's why you're going to hear a lot more about this as we lead into the June developer conference for Apple. This on-device models that can do things for you on your phone without an internet connection is going to be a really big unlock. And I think it will lead to a lot more adoption. And it's probably going to be much more like the adoption we had in the 2011 to 2020 range, where we were all using AI in Netflix and Spotify and YouTube and Facebook. Like AI was part of our lives and we didn't realize it. That's what this will enable is like that these models can just be underlying functions on your phone and you don't even know you're using AI. It's not like you're going to a AI app to use AI. It's just going to be embedded within everything.